July 28th, 2-minute drill. We're starting with opt-outs. Like half the Patriots team has decided to opt out, basically except for Cam Newton. What are you guys making of this? Are you now worried about the Patriots being able to make it to the playoffs, Steven?
I was already a little worried. I thought that Cam Newton would bridge the gap a little bit, but they have so much turnover on defense now. Dante Hightower opting out, Patrick Chung. We're talking about guys that have been just staples on that defense with very specific roles. You add that to losing Kyle Van Noy, to losing Deron Harmon. I think at some point, all those defensive losses are adding up. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge for New England no matter what, even if those guys were there battling the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. So, yeah, this just makes it a little bit more difficult. Plus, Marcus Cannon at right tackle, yeah, they are falling pretty quickly in New England.
Yeah, even a great coach like Bill Belichick, I mean, when you're hemorrhaging talent, there is cause for concern. We know that he is a master at having the next man up, or maybe getting the next player prepared to play, or getting the team to play very well together. But let's face it, a coach can't get out there and play. We know that coaches have all the power, very little control once they kick the ball off. You need players to be able to make plays. When you lose guys like Patrick Chung, Dante Hightower, Marcus Cannon at the tackle position, and you're going to really, I think, be hurting. I'm not so sure this is going to be a playoff team in New England during the 2020 season.
The only opt-out that would make me worried is if Bill Belichick, who's older, he's at risk, decides to opt out. Then I'll be worried because he is the defense, and you can bring in a Josh Uche, who I really liked, a lot of our guys really liked, had like a 23% pressure rate at Michigan, and he can plug some holes on defense. Yeah, Patrick Chung's really good, tight end eraser, but what tight ends are you facing in the AFC East that you're worried about? None. You're not even facing any quarterbacks that you're worried about in that division. The one that kind of worries me a little bit is Marcus Cannon, because who are you bringing in? Yadni Kajust, and you've got Cam Newton back there. You'd like him to stay upright. But the reason I'm not worried is it still hinges completely on Cam Newton. If Cam Newton come out and play 15, 16 games, they'll make the playoffs. If he can't, they won't, and that's still the linchpin of that team. So this gives them maybe a little higher chance to get Trevor Lawrence if things fall apart at the quarterback position.
Everybody thinks he's playing six-dimensional chess over there in New England, trying to tank, and Trevor, hey, guys, go home for the year. But he wouldn't have brought Cam in if that was the case.
Come on. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
All right, guys, it's NFL Network Top 100 time, and I have to say, they do a great job from a production value standpoint. They get great quotes, they get great clips, but the process of picking the team is questionable at best, especially when we're over here at PFF grading every player on every play, so we've got some strong takes. The NFL 100 is out. It's trickling out. What are your biggest takeaways so far?
So my biggest takeaway is the fact that I'm hearing that Carson Wentz is going to be left outside of the top 100. And for me, that's a travesty. And for years, I worked at the NFL Network, and I tried mightily to get them to tell me, how is this selected? What players are actually voting on this? I couldn't get anyone to tell me, because I just wasn't believing what I was hearing. And if the players don't think that Carson Wentz is a top 100 player, when he most certainly is, did anyone happen to see the wide receiving core that Carson Wentz played with 1 season ago? And the fact that he won a division, that's right, he won a division title and took him to the playoffs. So for me, I'm going to have to kind of scratch my chin a little bit when I'm going over this top 100 list if Carson Wentz is left off of it.
There are so many to choose from. I could go with Jimmy G and Dak, but the one that really blew me away happened last night. Todd Gurley at 51, right after Devontae Adams goes at 57. Devontae Adams is the 9th highest graded offensive player over the last 2 years of all offensive players. Todd Gurley wasn't like even the best running back on his team last year. They couldn't trade him away. He's the 51st best player, and you can't trade him away? Get out of here. That was absolutely ridiculous. Again, as you said, Steve, great production value. The whole thing is really fun to watch. It's engaging as hell because it gets us talking about it. But I need to see some of these players making their votes with sincerity, because this one blew my mind.
Solly, we just need to talk to our friends over there at NFL Network and get us on there. We'll give you the real list, and then you guys can also have the players list and figure it out. Every year, though, it's always a quarterback. George, you mentioned Jimmy G's a little high, and Dak they're both in the 40s, fine. But there's always a quarterback who just was on a team that won a lot of games the previous season. And this year, it's Josh Allen, actually making the top 100 there's still a long way to go in Josh Allen's development. He's not a top 100 player, but we've seen this previously. Blake Bortles, he made the list after the 2017 season when they went to the AFC Championship. We saw Tim Tebow make the list. We saw Case Keenum make the list. Those guys just happened to be the quarterback on teams that won a lot of games the previous year, but not top 100 players. Josh Allen wasn't even a top 20 quarterback in PFF grades last year, so give him another year to prove himself.
Yeah, give him another year and then another year after that. And guys, right now, if you go to PFF.com, you can read Steve Palazzolo's article about the top ranked NFL secondaries. And so I know who he picked because I did read the article. But George, who is your number one NFL secondary?
Well, late in the evening, Steve and I were arguing over who should be number one. And in my near comatose state, I was banging the table for the Los Angeles Chargers. And the reason I was doing so is that they have two of the most underrated corners in Chris Harris Jr. and Casey Hayward. In fact, Richard Sherman, one of the greatest of all time, even called those two out as being super underrated. And then you bring in a guy like Derwin James back from injury, who might be the most dynamic secondary player that we have in this league. I just think they have so much ability to play, to cover the slot, cover the outside. I haven't even mentioned Desmond King. So I know there are a couple of others that are really good, but personally, I would take the Los Angeles Chargers.
And I love the Chargers secondary. That's why they're at number 2. But I had to go the Baltimore Ravens because when I'm looking at the secondaries, you want to have strong safeties, but you really want to roll 3 and 4 deep at cornerback. And I think that's what the Ravens have. Marlon Humphrey, one of the best young corners in the NFL, the number 3 grade when targeted in single coverage over the last few years. Most corners get torched in single coverage. He's actually held his own right up there with guys like Stephon Gilmore and Casey Hayward. Marcus Peters on the other side, a different type of corner, a guy that's going to make plays for you. He's going to turn the ball over. So I love that combination. But also Tavon Young can cover the slot. And Jimmy Smith, he's been battling injuries, but he's a number 4 cornerback. That's great depth. And of course, Earl Thomas, not only patrol in the middle, but all over the field the way the Ravens use him. So I love the depth there. I love the specific roles that the Ravens fit. And I love, especially those corners, Humphrey and Peters leading the way.
You know, it's hard to tell a guy who actually wrote the article that he was wrong. So I'm never going to do that, okay? But I go to another category is the secondary that allowed the most explosive pass plays. And that was the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I don't think they're the best secondary in the NFL. I'm going to go with George and say it's the LA Chargers because they allowed the second fewest explosive pass plays. I know, Steve, you talked about the ability to play man-to-man coverage. We know that it's highly volatile. One year you can be great at man-to-man coverage. The next year, you're like Marcus Peters and you're jumping everything and giving up big plays behind you. And that's what tends to happen. It's a feast or famine type of deal with Marcus Peters. And when you play that high percentage of man-to-man coverage, I'm rolling with the Chargers. I love the fact that they keep the ball in front of them. They make plays. They don't give up big plays. And then with Derwin James, he's like a wild card. He's a guy that you can use in so many different areas to make this the best secondary in the NFL.
Too bad they can't play any of those guys at quarterback.
That's right.
Irwin could play anywhere, so don't put it past him.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.